Okay, this is build 1.0.0. It is my recommended build for beginners. Let's walk through all the items needed. Okay, so first we have a 2x4 VivoSun tent, which will be used for the flowering. We have a 32-inch by 32-inch Cool Grows tent, which will be used for vegging. We have our 2000 watt Mars Hydro light, which we will use for flowering. And we have a weaker and cheaper Tesaida 600 watts light, which we will use for the vegging. Okay, for our air circulation, we have two 4-inch VivoSun inline fans, two connectors, three pieces of ducting, one 4-inch air filter. Then we have an oscillating fan for our flowering tent, which is a bit stronger. And we have this weaker clip fan, which we will use for our vegging tent. We have two timers. The vegging will be set for 18 hours of light, and the flowering will be set for 12 hours. We have a 3-foot extension cord. We have a little power strip. And then let's go over some of the tools that we'll need to get this installation completed. We have the silver ducting tape. This will be good for attaching our filter to our inline fan. We have a wire cutter. I'm going to use this to cut the ducting. Box cutter used to cut ducting and our paracord. We have a Phillips head screwdriver, or if you have one, of course it's always faster to use an electric screwdriver. And last but definitely not least, we have 1/8 inch paracord. I like to get the big reel, use a lot of this throughout the grow process as well. But for now, we're going to use this to create loops and basically hang everything that we need to hang from the tents without having to buy extra hardware, which can get expensive and this just gets more complex. Okay, we're going to get started by hanging the light in our 2x4 flower tent. So to do that, we're going to need some loops to hang the light hardware from. In this tutorial, what I'll be using is paracord and just making loops by tying a few knots together, which I'll demonstrate right now. Okay, so I take a 12-inch approximately length of paracord, cut it, and then we're going to go tie the loop. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a paracord loop. We're going to take our 12-inch paracord string and make a loop out of it at in the top pole of the tent. All right. So you're just gonna hang your 12-inch paracord over the bar and tie one loop. I like to stick in my finger to make it nice and tight to create a smaller loop. We make our second knot, and for good measure, a third knot, just to make sure it holds, which it always has for me. Used this for a long time. And there it is. Now we have one loop that we can use to hang our light from. I'm going to create another one, and then I'll show you guys how to hang the light. Okay, I'm going to show you how to attach the hardware that comes with your light, and then we're going to remove the power packs from the light because I want to have them outside of the tent since they produce some heat, and we're going to include some heat mitigation techniques with this initial build. Alright, so let's attach the hardware just for completeness in case this is somehow unclear for beginners. See, the kit comes with one of these, might be a bit longer when you get it, but either way, it attaches to the frame, just clips right in. And then the second piece of the hardware is this adjustable little thing. There's a little button here that lets it extend, and then you can pull it up to make it tighter. So when we attach it, we want this bottom piece to be attached to the actual light frame. Okay, that's how it clips in. And the top here, we're going to attach to our paracord loops that we created. So we have this ready. This side was already done. I just want to show you at least one of the sides how to attach it. And now I was going back and forth if I should include this part in the beginner installation, but I want the end result to be something that I would actually use myself. And I wouldn't be comfortable, leaving this power source in there because it creates so much heat, and it's easy enough to detach, keep it outside the tent, and then yeah, it really helps to lower the heat a lot inside the tent, which can become an issue, right, depending on where you have it. Okay, so all we're gonna do is unscrew all the attached little areas, and they unscrew very easily, just like this. And once you get loosen one up, then the other one usually lets you just release it. And we're gonna unscrew everything on here. This one. Once you unscrew them, we can put them back so we don't lose them. And it's designed really well, so it unscrews really easily. Take it with one hand and put it back. Okay, so now all our power supply stuff is separate. We're gonna hang up our tent first, and then we're gonna attach the power supply. So let's detach everything remaining from the grow light, and now we're going to move to hang it. Okay, let's hang our Mars Hydro grow light inside our flower tent. Okay, you can hold it by your attached hardware and just clip it onto the loops that you created. Just like that. Okay, we have our light hung up. Let's get the power supply. We're gonna put it on top of the tent. But if you are in a garage or somewhere where you have plenty of space and not worry about the flooring, I would try to place it on the floor behind the tent. But in this example, I'm going to place it on top of the tent, and this has worked well for me. But again, these elements do get fairly hot, so yeah, just be warned. I don't think it's dangerous, but again, this is all. Everything here is just recommended at your own risk. But yeah, I haven't had any issues with it. So okay, let's grab the hardware. I'm gonna put it on top of the tent. Okay, see, I'm just gonna put it towards the back of the tent. I like to have the control close to the front so I can adjust the strength of the light. And then I like to put the actual power bricks towards the edge so it has a little more support. That's where the frame of the tent is. And then these two will go into the tent and they'll be attached to the light. And this is just the power cord, which we will plug in later to some electric source. I'm thinking maybe the extension cord. Okay, so we can toss this back there, toss these back here. Show you real quick how I have this laid out on top. Just like that. Again, this is the power brick, whatever you want to call it. There's two of these. I have them close to the edge. And this is the on-off switch with the power adjuster. I have that in the front. And now I'm going to run the actual the power cord into the tent. And conveniently, there is a little outlet hole in the tent right above in the middle of the light. So we're going to run it through that. And if you haven't opened one of these before, it should arrive open, but again, it's pretty easy. There should be two of these little pulley things. When you press it and you push it forward, it closes up the hole. Press it, pull it back, it opens it up. So we're going to open it up, go behind the tent. Put our power wires through. Then I like to put it over the top of the bar on top so it has more support. Do this for both of them. Then we're going to attach it on the side and again attach it on the side there. And that's it. For now, we'll leave the hole open as we will be putting other things through there as well. and everything will be powered on at the end. Okay, let's move on to hang our Phaseida veg tent grow light. So this one I already have the hardware attached. It's kind of a similar method of attaching it, but this one arrives with just one of these clips, and you attach these to all of the four little corners here. The hardware is somewhat similar, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. So let's release it a little bit, make it a little bit longer. There it goes. All right, so we're gonna hang this up in our veg tent, and I already took the liberty of creating a little paracord loophole, which you know how to do, and I put it in the center of the bar. And this one's much easier because you just need one loop, and one clip. So you clip it on there, just like that. And I like to sometimes move the loop stuff to the top so it doesn't get in the way at all. And also some of the extra rope you can put at the top, unless you need it to adjust later, of course. And then we have our power cord. So we're going to stick this through the hole in the back top left. It's already open for us. Actually, let's also bring this one over the top bar for extra support. And stick it through that top left hole for powering on later. And there it is. We have our veg tent light hung up. This one is nice. It's much easier. It doesn't have the separate components. And it has a little fan in there. So I'm actually becoming a big fan of these. You know, another option is to have just extra smaller lights in a bigger tent. So that's something that I'm going to investigate in the future. But at the same time, I am also a big fan of the Mars Hydro lights. They've produced some amazing results for me. So yeah, for the time being, we're going to keep this one just for the veg tent. Okay, we got our grow lights hung up. Let's move forward. Next, we'll work on installing the inline fans. The first step that we'll work on is hanging our VivoSun 4-inch inline fan. One thing to note is the airflow. There's an arrow on the front here. It shows you which way the airflow goes. For our tent setup, we'll always be going from left to right. So from outside of the left of the flower tent to the right side of the veg tent. So let's keep that in mind when hanging these up. Alright, so as with everything else in this installation, it doesn't come in the box with these parts. We're going to use paracord to hang up the inline fans. Okay, so let's start by creating a 3-knot on one side. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that one was a bit tight, but that's perfect. 3 knots, nice and strong. All right, So this side, we're going to go about 2 finger lengths for comfort and to make it easier on ourselves. And we're going to tie it here and try to make it tight. All right, nice and tight. Hold it with 1 finger. Stick it under there. Tighten it up a little bit. Okay, there's our first knot. Second knot. And our third knot. There it goes. Okay, and now we're gonna cut another length of paracord, and we're gonna use to hang it, put it in the middle, and then we're gonna just attach that straight to the bar at the top of the tent. So let's see. Let's get about about a 2-foot paracord length. Get a cut. Again, a lot of this is preference, but I like to usually cut a bit extra to be comfortable. So we're gonna first create our 3-knot here in the middle. Make it nice and tight. Three. All right. So it moves around a little bit. That's okay. So now we're gonna take our inline fan and we're gonna hang it. Let's start with a flower tent like before. All right. Let's take our inline fan and we're gonna hang it in our flower tent. Okay. So it's gonna go on the top right over here, close to the hole on the top right side of the tent. I'm going to hang it off of the second bar. And again, make sure you're looking at the airflow. But again, since we're just hanging it from a paracord, you'll be able to spin it around pretty easily if you do hang it on the wrong side. Okay, so I'm gonna put the power cord through the hole again, so it's out of the way. Okay, we got the airflow going this way. I'm gonna hang it right over here, pretty close to the right side hole over there where we can put the duct in later. So again, we're just gonna try to put it as close to the top as possible. Since we're gonna be moving our tent light up and down, we don't want to limit it. Gets a little tricky, but again, for me, this is easier than trying to use other hardware, and it's cheaper as well. Okay, so we got that first knot. Try to keep things tight when you're making your second knot. All right, that's pretty good. Then we'll do our third knot. And the extra paracord, I like to kind of pop it on the top bar to get it out of the way. Or you can cut it off, but I just like to leave it. All right. And again, the slides, the bar moves, so we have some flexibility here. All right, so that's our first inline fan. Let's go and install our veg tent inline fan. So for this one, I already connected the paracord in the same exact way as the first one. Again, we're going to be mindful of the airflow. And let's go hang it up. Okay, this is the top bar of our veg tent. Let me step in here. And again, we're going for pretty high up. This one isn't quite as important to get it all the way up, since the veg tent light, it's not necessarily going to go as high. So yeah, let's again do a similar thing where we're going to tie 3 knots, move it up higher a little bit. There we go. So that's 1 knot. There's 2. You know what? I'm gonna go a bit higher with it, just because I can. So 1 knot. Two knot. And the third one. And the extra paracord, gonna put it at the top again. Okay. Then we're gonna take the power cord and we're gonna slip it through the same hole. Actually, let's go over the top with this one as well. Take the power cord over the top on the bar. Let's straighten this guy out. And let's slip it through the top left hole. And there it goes. We have our veg tent inline fan. Again, make sure keep an eye on that the airflow. That's gonna come out the top right hole over here, and we're going to have our air filter to the left of it. All right, let's move on. Okay, we have our 2 inline fans hung up. Next, let's hang up our inline fan filter, which will go in the veg tent. So this one, when you buy it, it does come with hardware that's similar to the light hardware, but I'm choosing not to use it because it's harder to make this hardware get the filter as high as I would like, and I'm not going to be adjusting it, so I don't see the big purpose in using it. So again, we'll go back to our trusty paracord, and I know it's starting to sound like a paracord commercial, which is fine. I mean, this stuff is pretty great. I definitely use it, recommend it. So yeah, I took about a 30-inch length of paracord on each side. Got our 3 knots as always. Nothing too fancy here. And then let's start hanging. So this is a bit heavy, so you have to for sure be careful. I like to hang up one side, tie it down, and then do the side that connects to the fan, the second. And then you could also adjust it pretty easily
if you make a mistake. Again, the nice thing about paracord is that it does untie really easily as well if you need to correct something. Okay, so I'm gonna take this filter, grab it, and let's hang it up. Okay, so this filter is going to go right next to our inline fan. That's a good view right there. Okay. So I'm going to hang it first on one side. Be very careful as it is heavy. Get it over there. I like to hold it on top of my hand. Again, if you're not comfortable doing this, maybe have somebody else help you. I've been doing this for a little while, so I have some experience. But this is one of the heavier things that we'll be hanging up, or the heaviest, I should say. So I'm just gonna hang it up right there, create my first knot. Okay, then I'm gonna hold it like that, do my second knot, and my third knot. Okay, so there's our first connection to the pawl, and then the second one we're going to line up with the inline fan. Let's see if I can position this camera correctly. Hopefully that shows what I'm doing. And yeah, we're going to try to just match them up. And this doesn't have to be too perfect, but try to get as close as you can. And again, all this stuff slides around, so once you get the height correct, which this looks right, I'm gonna hold it again, do my 3 knots, and then afterwards we can use our tape, our silver ducting tape. That'll make a nice tight seal and keep all the odors out of our area, if that's important to the situation. All right, 3 knots. Let's make it 4 knots. We got plenty of rope. There it is. There's our inline fan and our inline filter connected. Kind of sticking out a little bit. There we go. And then we're gonna just connect them up with the tape. So let's do that now.
All right, let's get our silver ducting tape. And then we're gonna connect our filter to our inline fan in the veg tent. So we're gonna rip off about, I don't know, about a 1.5 feet of tape, I would say. Maybe closer to 1 foot. We just wanted to wrap around once. So this is our tape. We're gonna start peeling it. I've made a few adjustments from before. I saved you the trouble of watching me play with it for 5 minutes. But again, paracord unties really easily, so I recommend to do the same until you're comfortable with the setup. Okay, you got your tape. You start unwinding it. Everything's fitting pretty good. And I'm going to go all the way around to connect it. I want to make sure it's long enough to go all the way around. It's not, just cut another little piece. And mine was just long enough to get the entire connection between this fan and the filter. Okay, there it is. We can slide the bar back. I'm going to keep it a little bit towards the back. Everything slides around easily. So when we connect our duct to the hole on the right, we'll have some flexibility in moving things around, which is really nice. And then we can move on to our duct, one of the last few steps in the initial process.
Okay, so when you get your ducting, it's going to arrive in one big chunk. It's going to be, the one I recommend is getting a 25 footer. So you will have to cut it down to get it to the lengths that you want. And as part of the completeness of this tutorial, I just wanted to give a quick overview of how to cut this the ducting. Okay, so here's a small piece that I'm not going to use, but I just want to show you how to cut it and how to measure it. So when you're measuring it, with my recommendations, you're gonna make it straight. And again, these are all estimates, so you don't have to be too precise with it. For example, if I'm gonna do a 8-inch, I would extend it a bit, and there's 8 inches. So you're gonna take your box cutter, open it up, cut it around, and eventually you're gonna come across a hard metal piece, and you're gonna have to use something stronger to cut that. You can probably get away with using some nice scissors, but I have this little wire cutter tool, so that's what I'm using. Get in there and cut. And that's it. That's how you cut the ducting. As you can see here, I've pre-cut my ducts to get it for what I want for the purposes. And you're going to need 3 pieces. So let me measure those for you right now so you have an idea of what they are in case you want to make those cuts right now. Okay, so this is the first one. It's about 40 inches, the first one. That will go in on the left side of the flowering tent. This smaller one is about 30 inches. That will go on the right side of the veg tent. And then the last one is longer, and I actually left longer than is necessary. Let's see how long mine is. And again, when it's longer, better than too short, since it kind of collapses. You just leave it collapsed. For this one, mine is about 75 inches, but you could probably get away with about 60. All right, let me show you how to attach them to the tent.
Okay, so the first piece is the easiest. since we'll just be attaching it to the left of the flower tent, and we don't have to connect it to anything, since it will just be used to allow for airflow into the tent. Okay, so we just have to make sure that this opening is open. Again, it's the same little system. There's two separate closures. Make sure it's open. Let's stick it through there. So the reason there's a pretty long ducting here is because we wanted to create a 180-degree angle so that no light gets through and only air gets sucked in. And this will be bringing in fresh air from the bottom, and we're going to be sucking out the air from the top right. Okay, so once we have this in there, we wrap it around like that on this side. Let's put it close to the tent. And then we can close up the openings. And again, there will be two little pulley things to close. First, we'll close the first one, and then we can tuck in some of the extra rope there. And we'll close up the second one. Make sure it's nice and tight, just to keep out all the odors as we're trying to make this airtight. And again, the flowering tent is the one that's going to produce the strongest smells. Alrighty, next we're going to connect our longest ducting, and we're going to use a connector, which we will be using a Phillips head screwdriver to open up and tighten it back around our inline fan. Okay, let's get a good view of this here. Okay, there's our connector. Counterclockwise, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to put it on top of the tent for now. Okay, then I'm going to take my long ducting, and I'm going to stick it through the side into my flower tent. Okay, now that it's sticking out a bit, I'm going to double check the airflow on my fan. Make sure it's going to the right. I'll put my little screwdriver on the top of the tent. Okay, then I have my little connector, my ducting connector. This saves us from having to use any tape, which is nice. Okay, this can be a little tricky. It's easier when you're not trying to get it on camera. But yeah, you can slide the connector down the body of the ducting, and then just slide it around your inline fan like that. However is comfortable for you. Okay, then try to hold it with one hand in place. Let's get your screwdriver. This is much easier with an electric screwdriver. So you have to hold this as long. It's pretty uncomfortable. Let's make it clockwise for closing it up. Let me get a better grip here. Okay, almost there. All right, that's nice and tight around our inline fan. Airflow is pointing in the right direction. And then we can close up the opening in our grow tent. Again, we do this twice. Sticking the extra material in there, extra rope. Make it nice and neat, as neat as you like. Nice and tight. And there it goes. And as long as we're here, let's make sure to close up some of these holes we're not using. So this top one I will never use for anything in this build. So I'm going to close it up twice again. First the inner one. I'm tucking the extra rope as much as I can. It's not the outer one. Or I'll just stick the rope on top of the bar there. If it ever gets in the way, I'll do something with it. All right. So now we have our ducting here, and we can insert it into our veg tent. Okay, similar as before. Let's open up the opening in our veg tent, and let's slide in our ducting on the bottom there. Okay, make sure this is open. Get our ducting in there. I kind of like it just pointing that way and being out of the way. That's pretty good for me. Just play around with it, see how you like it, see how much space you have in your tent if it gets full. Let's close it up. And again, within this installation, I'm trying to make the outside look as nice as possible. So all the ropes and everything I'm keeping inside. But if you're in a garage or somewhere where nobody will ever see it, you might consider putting the ropes of these enclosures, of these openings outside. And that's it. Now they're connected. We can work on our last ducting connection with the veg tent over here. Okay, let's connect our final ducting to the veg tent. The smallest one, about 30 inches. Let's get it through the opening on the top right. And we're going to connect it up with the veg tent inline fan. Double check the airflow again, looks good. Can't tell you how many times I've made that mistake. Somehow the airflow always gets mixed up in my tents, I have to admit. Or I used to, not anymore. So if you make the mistake, don't feel bad. Alright, I hope you can see this. But it's the same connection as before. Gonna tighten up the connector, which I already had on there. Get it nice and tight. And this one is shorter, just hangs out the back over here. Got an angle, but I kept this one shorter because the fan already keeps some of the light out of there. And now that you have the filter, there's extra light that keeps out. So you don't have to make it too long, and probably make it a little shorter than this if you wanted to. Okay, let's finish by tightening this up as usual. Nothing fancy here. Clean up the extra rope if you want to, which I recommend. And there it is. We have our inline fans installed with our ducting. Okay, let's put our little airflow fans inside the tents. So the oscillating fan is a little stronger. We're going to put this inside the flower tent since it gets hotter and it likes more airflow. And this is just a recommended beginner airflow. But if you get really bushy plants, I would later recommend to add even more fans on the bottom or the top. You know, we can discuss that later. But for now, at very minimum, you want to have a nice little fan. And I found an oscillating fan works really well. Doesn't have the airflow in one place. It's a little bug. Let's get the cord all the way through and tighten it up. Make this one nice and neat. All right. So again, this fan will be pointing towards the wall, and the idea is to not hit the plants directly, which actually you can do when they're really bushy and they want more airflow. Okay, let's get our weaker clip fan connected into the veg tent. So I like to place this one in the back here behind the filter. It's going to be hard to get a good angle to demonstrate this to you all. But it's pretty simple. It just clips on to the top bar there. I'm going to use the bar facing this way. Just clip it onto the back there. Like this. That's the fan. It's going to clip over here. And I'm going to point it towards turn it to point towards the middle of the tent on the right side. Take the extension cord, stick it through our trusty extension cord hole, which takes care of all of the power supplies for our veg tent. Nice and neat. And I think that hole we can tighten from the other side. Since our plugs are going to be on that side anyway, it's not going to be the prettiest. Alright, let's get everything plugged in. We're going to start with our flower tent plugs. And the flower tent is going to go straight into our little power strip here. Okay, so you have two prong power cords for the fans. Get those plugged in. we have our 3-prong light power cord, and this is going to go into our mechanical timer. For the flower tent, this will be set for 12 hours. But for simplicity, I'm just going to flip this switch to on for now for our testing, and I'll go over some of this functionality as part of the grow tutorials. All right, let's get our veg tent electrical hooked up. So the way I have it set up, a lot of the veg tent plugs, they kind of hang close to the middle. So that's where we'll be working, and we'll just let it dangle from there. All right, so we're going to start with this extension cord. Just a standard, I guess it's 6-foot extension cord. And first, we're going to grab just the 2-prong power cords, and this would be for the fans. Nothing fancy here. And this is where it gets a little fancier. Just as before, the 3-prong light cord, we're going to attach it to one of these timers, very similar kind of a thing. And for the veg tent, it's going to be set to 18 hours. And again, we're going to discuss that in further detail in the future. And for now, we're going to move this switch from scheduled to on for our testing. And since this is a 3-prong outlet, and we need a 2-prong for our basic extension cord, I'm going to use this little 3-prong to 2-prong adapter. Okay. And then all we have left to do is to plug in the extension cord into the power strip. And now everything is connected up to this one power strip, which we can plug in. And if you don't have an outlet that's close enough, you might need to get an extra extension cord. Okay, yeah, besides that, I want to mention so all of these openings in the back of the tent, I'm thinking it makes more sense to just pull them out on this side. Since it already has cords and it's most likely against the wall, we want to pull them out on this side and tighten them up. So it's a bit cleaner inside the tent from that area. And you want to make sure they're nice and tight. All right, that's it. Let's check out the front after we plug it in. All right, everything is plugged in, and we should be pretty much finished with our grow tent setup. I just wanted to go over a few things to finalize the project. Okay, so as you can see, I've zipped up the grow tents, and one thing I want to point out is that this setup creates negative pressure in the tents, which most would agree is actually the most beneficial airflow for growing weed plants. So when they are zipped up, you should see the tents kind of sucked in a little bit. And that's what you're looking for. If that's not the case, make sure all of the tent holes are closed up tight, and make sure your fans are working, because once in blue, you'll get a fan that just is a dud. At that point, send it back, get a new one. Okay, let me go over some of the functionalities of the dimming and all that kind of stuff real quick. So again, okay, first let me encourage you to turn off all the lights and make sure that specifically the flower tent is not leaking light. You know, if you have it, let's say in your bedroom, for example, you're going to have it on from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., but then you might still have lights on after 9 p.m. There might be lights before 9 a.m. And if the tent is leaking light, that means that light can leak back into the tent. So for the flower tent, it's very important to not have that happen to get the best results. So if you are seeing light leaks, use some of the silver tape or whatever other means you could think of to prevent that. Maybe even cover it with some kind of curtain that you have laying around or something like that. And again, turn the lights off. Check for light leaks. Okay. Other than that, let me just open these up real quick. You have these little Velcro things here. So it'll hold it open for you on the side if that is useful to you. This one is a little close. I'm just going to stuff it in there. A little Velcro. Okay, so the way we have this set up is both of these lights have dimmers, which I always highly recommend for light choices. So the dimmer for this one, as instructed, should be on top of your tent currently. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's an on and off switch. The back actually has an on and off for the dimmer, so make sure that's on. And you can control the light from 0 to 100. And for the flower tent, I usually, when I start flowering a plant, I'll leave it maybe at 75 or maybe even like 60%, and then gradually increase to 100 over a couple weeks as the buds really love strong light. You have something similar on this Phaceida veg tent light, a little dimmer, but this light is much weaker, so I usually leave it around 90% or even 100, depending on how fast you want your veg plants to grow. Both of these have similar functionality for the hanging light hardware. You click on there, it slides down. You can make it go lower, and of course you have to consider your plugs, your power source, since that can also keep it higher. And when you pull this up, pull down on the rope, and the light will go up. You'll find yourself moving this quite a bit, as your flower tents plants can pop really, really hard, and sometimes you'll get a foot or two after you start flowering, and then you'll be wanting to adjust that height. For the veg tent, you have a similar functionality, but you probably are not going to use it too much, since the veg tent should not get that big to begin with before starting to flower. Yeah, aside from that, I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I hope it worked for you. If something is not clear or you have questions, please feel free to check out our website, howgrowweed.com. We're going to try to write out all these instructions as well. And if something doesn't make sense, please post on the bottom of the page where you would see the video, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can.